On the menu for today are 3 cases about some housewives who were a little too good in the kitchen. You could say they took the word toxic to a whole new level. That's right, we'll be covering some of the most memorable poisonings in true crime history. The perpetrators, your average everyday housewife. Let's dive in. Now, women intentionally poisoning their significant others isn't really something new to the true crime world. In fact, recordings of these fatalities began as early as the 19th century. Referred to as the Black Widow, Mary Ann Cotton goes down in crime history for her toxic tendencies. In the 1800s, she was a housewife who worked part-time as a nurse in England. She had a husband, children, and an addiction to slipping them arsenic. Arsenic was a popular choice of toxin at the time. It's odorless and easily accessible. You could purchase it at your local market. Arsenic causes side effects that similarly mimic a bacterial virus that many men would contract from drinking unclean water. Over her lifetime, Mary Ann reportedly offed 3 out of her 4 husbands with this chemical concoction. But she didn't stop there. It was on record that she slipped arsenic to up to 21 men. Some were just lovers, but more than half of them were her own children. Why did she do this? This woman is supposed to be a nurse who knows how to heal people. Why is everyone around her dying? It's believed that Mary was poisoning these men and her children because she wanted their insurance policies, aka that cash money. She reportedly went straight to the insurance office to collect her check before even going to the doctor to retrieve the death certificate. After her 4th husband left her and she squeezed the money and life out of the other 3, she wanted to marry again. And yes, this would be her 5th husband. But to marry this guy, Mary Ann would have to relocate due to his work. And the only thing stopping her from going off with him was her 7-year-old stepson Charles that she still had custody of. She even tried to have him sent to a facility where he could work and have a place to stay, but the facility refused her request. Upon the refusal to have Charles taken off her hands, Mary Ann was annoyed. Apparently she had made a comment to a church community leader that she knew she would be able to marry again soon and would not be troubled by Charles for long, and that he would go like the rest of the Cotton family. Hello? Mary Ann committed crimes with discretion but was going around saying sketchy stuff like this? It was obvious she was beginning to feel a little too invincible. When Charles grew ill and passed away 5 days later, the community member had police investigate the case, growing suspicious of Mary Ann and her strange prediction of Charles's passing. After the coroner assessed her stepson's stomach, it was determined his fatality was a result of arsenic poisoning. Though it was not proven that she had given toxins to her other victims, Mary Ann did not put up a fight when accused and was hung for her actions in March of 1873. There were several other women in the 1800s who used arsenic to their financial advantage, but in the 21st century, things like this are as easily swept under the rug. I mean, if you think about it, we now can have accurate autopsies, can hack computers, and even have lie detectors. Still, these housewives were determined to get creative when seeking revenge. Another example of this jumps forward in the year 2013. A woman by the name of Jacqueline Patrick and her 21-year-old daughter Catherine schemed to poison her husband and Catherine's father, Douglas, by putting antifreeze in his annual Christmas cocktail. It was December 25th, and the family was all sitting together in the dining room. As Douglas was finishing up his 2nd glass of his chemical concoction, he collapsed. It was showtime. Jacqueline and her daughter made her acting debut, appearing concerned and frantic when calling for an ambulance. The emergency operator asked for more details, and Jacqueline claimed that it must have been his kidneys acting up again. When the paramedics arrived, Jacqueline handed them a note that she crafted herself, posing to be Douglas, saying he did not want to be resuscitated and wanted to pass with dignity with his family by his side. When tests from the hospital confirmed that it was not Douglas's kidneys that caused him to go into a coma, but antifreeze, They called Jacqueline. Her response? He must have accidentally drank it. She then began to try to make it sound like Douglas was actually trying to take his own life that Christmas evening. Come on, Jacqueline. Did you forget modern technology can figure out real quick that he ingested fluid that goes into your car? Douglas thankfully came out of his coma 2 weeks after the incident. However, he faced a long and brutal road of recovery, taking him a year to regain his ability to speak fully and walk. When Douglas began to form sentences again, he spoke with the doctors and stated that he was not trying to take his own life, despite Jacqueline's claims. Douglas confidently stated that he did not purchase any antifreeze over the past few months. Jacqueline was a suspect from this point on, and when police brought her in to press her further on the incident, they pulled the evidence from the "do not resuscitate" note she forged. On the note, the word dignity was spelled wrong. She spelled it D-I-G-N-A-T-Y. Officers asked Jacqueline to recite the spelling for the word, which she also spelled wrong, the same exact way it was misspelled in the note. Busted. As the police investigated further, they found old internet searches on her computer about antifreeze poisoning. Jacqueline protested, stating that she searched for that because her neighbor's dog had consumed antifreeze and she wanted to help. But after police spoke to the family's neighbor, they discovered that they did not own a dog, and Jacqueline was exposed yet again. God, Jacqueline, if you are gonna be a revenge-seeking housewife, at least be decent at lying. I was telling better lies in my elementary years. Eventually, Jacqueline and her daughter, Catherine, confessed to not only this incident, but a few others as well. There were other attempts earlier to off Douglas in 2013 using antifreeze as well. Though Catherine mostly took a supportive role and Jacqueline was behind most of the action, both were involved in plotting his fate. So why did she do it? It was revealed that Jacqueline had been searching for an extreme way out after suffering years of abuse from her husband. Catherine also claimed to suffer abuse from her father for years and was heavily reliant upon her mother emotionally. Surprisingly, when Douglas found out the truth, he did not want to pursue a case against his wife or daughter. He confessed that he was heartbroken, and it was something he would never see himself emotionally recovering from. Jacqueline was sentenced to 15 years in jail, while Catherine was sentenced to 3 years. Apparently, when they were in court awaiting their verdict, the two of them were practically glued to the hip, holding each other during the entire hearing. If my mom convinced me to commit a crime and then forgot to mention she was terrible at lying, hiding evidence, and forging a simple note, nope. She would be getting the silent treatment for quite a while. The last case we'll be talking about is a unique one. Though the incident happened in 2010, this woman picked a toxin that had not been used since the 1800s. She went old school on this one, probably thinking it would increase her chances of not getting caught. Which is fair, but again, it's the 21st century, people. How did y'all not know you were gonna get caught? Lakhvir Kaur Singh was married with 3 children, but she struggled with feeling happy with her life and marriage. So when her husband was diagnosed with cancer, she began her affair with Lakhvinder Chima, a man she had met through work who had conveniently just gotten divorced. Both were vulnerable and lonely, making them a match made in heaven. Or was it hell? The pair's affair ended up lasting 16 years. That's longer than most marriages last. I mean, that's a long time. At that point, just leave your husband and marry this man. Anyways, though this was an affair and not a committed relationship, it was obvious that Lakhvir was becoming very territorial. She made a few comments to Lakhvinder about burning his house down and ending him if she ever saw him in bed with another woman. In 2008, Lakhvinder left the affair with her to pursue a relationship with a woman much younger than him. And let me tell ya, Lakhvir was furious. Eventually, Lakhvinder actually proposed to this younger woman, and they made plans to be married on Valentine's Day that following year. Meanwhile, Lakhvir was going to India to visit her family. She actually had booked the trip well before Lakhvinder ended their affair. But while she was there, the anger consumed her, and she came up with a plan to get back at Lakhvinder for breaking her heart. While in India, she purchased a toxin called aconite, but it's more commonly known as wolfsbane. The experience that this wolfsbane has on the body is very unique. It's described to cause a tingling sensation all over the body that simulates hundreds of ants crawling all over you. It also attacks the digestive system and heart, resulting in a slow and excruciating fate. Lockefear still had a way to get into Lockfinder's apartment and knew he would be out of town with his fiancée for the weekend. She broke in, went through the fridge, and found leftover curry that she had a strong suspicion would be eaten when the couple returned. This girl really gambled on this one. Lockefear poured the wolfsbane into the curry, closed the Tupperware back up, closed the fridge, and left without a trace. At this point, she knew it would just be a waiting game. Sure enough, Lockfinder and his fiancée returned from their trip and heated up their leftover curry for dinner. As they ate their meal, they both started to feel very sick, and almost immediately, Lockfinder knew. He called the emergency hotline and told the operator that his ex-girlfriend had put poison in their food. As he was on the phone, he began to lose his vision and feeling in his arms and legs. He screamed for help right before passing out, as his fiancée was next to him throwing up from the toxic curry. Lockfinder unfortunately passed away an hour after arriving at the hospital. Lockefear's plan was a success. His fiancée was put into a medically induced coma and was able to fully recover. She had survived simply due to eating her curry slower. When police investigated, it was not hard to find evidence that Lockefear was the culprit. She had been seen by a neighbor entering Lockfinder's home, and when she was searched, some of the wolfsbane was still in her pocket. She lied and said it was medicine for a rash. The police did a test on the substance and saw it was the same poison that caused Lockfinder's brutal death. Lockefear was ultimately given a life sentence with a 23-year minimum. I wonder if her revenge tastes as sweet as she initially imagined, sitting in that jail cell. I'm interested to hear what you all took away from these cases. For me personally, I'm reminded that a hunger for power, money, and revenge can make some people do crazy things. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. I'm gonna be paranoid about who handles my food from now on. Thanks. Kidding. Kinda. I have no enemies. I hope. I'm Brandi. This is Killer Bites. See you next time.